Each Monday morning, Gen X job hunters faced the same test. A stack of Sunday classifieds circled in red, a dozen resumes ready for hand delivery, and no second chances because voicemail did not exist. Their careers depended on pavement pounded, phone calls braved, and strangers convinced in real time. What did it really take to get hired before LinkedIn? And what did that analog gauntlet reveal about grit, resourcefulness, and the meaning of work? Sunday mornings arrived with a sense of purpose. The largest newspaper of the week landed on doorsteps, thick with newsprint and heavy with opportunity. For job seekers like Laura McKinney, this was the starting line. She remembers the ritual: a fresh cup of coffee, the smell of ink, and the crisp pages spread across the kitchen table. The classified section was always the first stop, a dense grid of tiny ads, each one a possible future. Laura's red pen hovered, then struck, circling the most promising listings: administrative assistant, $19,500 per year, retail sales, salary depending on experience. Salary ranges were printed right there in black and white, no guesswork about what the job might pay. Each ad offered only a few lines, so every word mattered. Laura scanned for details, location, hours, application deadlines, knowing that these ads appeared just once a week. Miss it, and you waited 7 days for another shot. By noon, her section was dotted with red circles, a map for Monday's campaign. The clock was already ticking. Monday mornings meant lacing up shoes and stepping into the unknown. After mapping out a route from the circled ads, job seekers like Mark Sullivan hit the streets, resumes stacked neatly under one arm. The routine was relentless. Push open a glass door, approach the front desk, and hand over a resume with a practiced smile. Sometimes a receptionist would offer a blank application, setting the stage for cramped handwriting at a lobby table, then back out to the car or onto the next block, repeating the process 10, 15, even 20 times in a single day. Mark kept a mileage log in his glove compartment. On a typical week, he logged over 40 miles with gas receipts to prove it. Each stop was a calculated risk, a chance that persistence might open a door. By late afternoon, feet ached and hands were stained with carbon paper, but there was no shortcut. The physical toll was real, but so was the sense of accomplishment that came from showing up in person day after day. James Lee sat at his kitchen table, rotary phone within reach, a single page of notes in front of him. Every line was highlighted or underlined, an annotated cold call script borrowed from the public library's career kit, refined by weeks of practice. There was no voicemail safety net. In 1988, most calls landed straight at a receptionist's desk. One chance, one pitch. James rehearsed the opening, his name, his skill, and a reference to the Sunday ad. He dialed, heart pounding, and listened for the click of a live answer. The receptionist's voice came through, brisk but not unfriendly. James delivered his script in under a minute, careful not to sound rehearsed. He asked for the hiring manager, offered a specific reason for calling, and waited. Sometimes the line went dead. Sometimes he was told to mail a resume, but every so often the receptionist paused, then transferred him on the spot. That is how James landed an interview with a regional distributor: 45 seconds of focus, a practiced tone, and a willingness to risk rejection. The cold call was a test of nerve as much as preparation. And for Generation X job seekers, it was often the only way through the front door. The hum of a typewriter filled kitchens and living rooms across the country, each keystroke carrying the weight of a future. For Gen X job seekers, a resume was more than a document. It was a personal project, crafted one painstaking line at a time. There were no templates, no spell check, and no undo button. Every word had to fit on a single sheet. The one-page rule was as rigid as the machine itself. Mistakes meant starting over, sometimes retyping the entire page after a single typo. The process demanded focus, name centered at the top, an objective statement that balanced honesty with ambition, and a careful listing of skills and experience. Paper quality mattered too.
Some applicants splurged on heavier bond stock from the local print shop, hoping a thicker page might catch a manager's eye. The finished resume felt substantial in the hand, a tactile promise of reliability. Each one was a small act of courage sent out into the world with no guarantee of a reply, but carrying all the hope and hustle that defined a generation's search for work. A name scribbled on a church bulletin, a neighbor's quiet recommendation, a parent's friend from the Rotary Club. These connections became lifelines for Gen X job seekers. In towns and cities across the country, the right introduction could open doors faster than any resume. A single phone call from a respected community member or a note in the local association newsletter often carried more weight than a stack of credentials. Hiring managers trusted personal endorsements, sometimes inviting candidates for interviews without glancing at their paperwork. Stories circulated about a volunteer firefighter recommended by the choir director or a babysitter's name passed along after Sunday service, each landing a job on trust alone. In many offices, a personal referral meant bypassing the pile of resumes entirely, moving straight to a handshake and a conversation. These relationships weren't built overnight. They grew from years of showing up, helping out, and earning a good word. For Gen X, the strongest pipeline to employment ran through living rooms, community halls, and church basements, a network built on real people, not algorithms. A pressed suit and a firm handshake were non-negotiable. In the late 1980s, every detail of the interview process sent a message. Human resources guides of the era advised candidates to arrive 15 minutes early, never on the dot, never late. The waiting area felt like a proving ground, each tick of the clock sharpening the sense that this was a test as much as a meeting. Candidates rehearsed their introductions, checked their resumes for smudges, and watched as receptionists sized them up. When the hiring manager appeared, the first exchange mattered. Eye contact, a confident greeting, the right balance of enthusiasm and respect. Inside the interview room, etiquette ruled. No one dared interrupt. Answers were concise but not rushed. A single misstep, a slouch, a fumbled response could close the door for good. The meeting often wrapped in under 30 minutes, but the impression lingered. Before leaving, candidates thanked every person they met, from the receptionist to the manager. That evening, a blank card and pen waited at home. A handwritten thank you note mailed the next day was expected. It was a final gesture of professionalism, a small but essential step in a ritual that left nothing to chance. A Rolodex sat at the center of every serious job search, a spinning archive of business cards and handwritten notes, each one a thread in the fabric of opportunity. Contacts were managed by hand, not by app. A single card pulled from the stack could mean a new lead or a second chance. Libraries offered more than quiet study. They were hubs for career kits, resume templates, and cold call scripts, with librarians ready to guide a nervous applicant through company directories or help refine a pitch. For those willing to pay, employment agencies promised access to hidden openings, but at a steep price. Rita Gonzalez remembers her first agency contract, 30% of her starting salary, due before she'd even sat at her new desk. Storefront windows and corkboard job postings added to the mix, each one a silent invitation. The tools were simple, physical, and often costly, but they gave Gen X job seekers every reason to stay organized and every reminder that the search was theirs to manage. Job offers rarely went to the most polished resume. Employers looked for something else: willingness to learn, a good attitude, and the grit to stick with it. In retail chains and banks, new hires started with a stack of onboarding materials, a training handbook, a checklist, and a 6-week schedule that mapped out every skill from using the register to handling a difficult customer. College degrees were nice but not required. Most managers believed they could teach the technical parts. What mattered was showing up, listening, and improving each week.
Internships were rare, so the first real job became the classroom. Those who made it through the training period often found themselves promoted from within, and loyalty was rewarded with new responsibilities. For Gen X, getting hired was just the start. The real test was proving you could grow into the role one day at a time. The call came through or the offer arrived across a desk, sometimes in person, sometimes by phone. Laura remembers the rush, a handshake, a smile, and the words she had worked so hard to hear. Mark still keeps his first offer letter, creased from being folded and unfolded 100 times. For Gen X, every offer was proof that persistence paid off. The habits forged, like showing up, pushing through setbacks, and finding a way, stuck long after the first job. Those lessons born from analog hustle still matter today. Today, algorithms scan our resumes before human eyes ever do. But the grit Gen X honed face to face, one handshake at a time, remains rare currency. As automation grows, that resilience and drive become more valuable, not less. The true edge isn't digital, it's human. What do you think?